You all right?
I can hear you loud and clear and see you
All right,
as
good,
clear.
good, good, good. Let's make sure everybody else is on track here. If you can see us and hear us, just give us a little thumbs up. Make sure it's all good to go.
Very good. There you are. We good to go?
Sounds good.
Yes, fine here. Sniper FX. Okay, good. Looks as though we're coming through okay.
Okay, good.
Guys, gosh, that's 2 days on a bounce now. I've messed up my audio here. I've got all the gear, but just no idea on how to use it. So so there you go. Well, we've got to day 10. Gosh, Jason, that's flown by. We started this almost 2 weeks or over 2 weeks now, getting ready for this, and we actually went production 10 days ago, and it's been absolutely fantastic. I don't know about you, Jason, but it's flown by for me.
Yeah, here too. It went really fast. I mean, it was a little bit daunting in the beginning, to be honest, and I think those of you who are in the room can notice that. I mean, we talked with the guys at the website, and we had to get set up and make all these little presentations, and it's tough. I don't know if you've ever given presentations before to anybody in the room, but to make a little presentation for a half hour, sometimes it takes a few hours to get it done, and then you practice it and learning all the software and the live streaming stuff. So we're finally going to get down to the point where we can show everybody how to
I found
trade.
it a whole new experience, to be honest. I mean, I've done quite a few presentations in front of live audiences in hotel rooms and trading shows and so forth. But standing in front of your own camera, just talking to yourself, I found it a whole different experience. But it's been great, and I think what has inspired me to continue on was the feedback that we've been getting, Jason. Because for me, I think it's been great from the room, from the comments, from the emails, and from people. It's just been I've been overwhelmed really by what we've achieved in terms of following. So it's been absolutely great. So thanks, guys in the room that have been following it. It's been really great to be involved.
Yep.
And of course, this session that we've been doing for the last couple of weeks has brought up lots of questions. So we thought what we'd do on our last day, we've changed the schedule a little bit. We both had different topics to talk about, but we thought we'd address some of these questions, because obviously once you're on the you're doing the presentation, it's very, very difficult for the new presenters to read chat and talk at the same time, and there's a 10-second, 15-second delay. So we thought we'd just sort of put a bunch of questions together for the last day, which is today, and have an informal Q&A session. So while we're doing this, we've sort of like summarized the common questions that came out over the last couple of weeks. But while we're doing this, by all means, now I've sorted out the chat, and I can... I'm managing slightly to do two things at once. If you want to jot some questions into the chat room there as well, I can read that at the same time. So that's great. Jason, I want to throw the first question at you if I can. Not that I'm going to be chairing this, because you could throw some back at me.
All right, you got it.
But I think a lot of the people in this room would like to know certainly what your biggest challenge was when you came into trading, and I'll certainly tell you about mine as well. But what was your biggest challenge, do you think, when you came in to the screens 10 years ago or so?
Probably and they said the video is dropping a little bit, but I think we just got to hang out. I know I have the fastest internet that's possible in my city. I think we're okay. So if it totally drops off or you have trouble, let me know. But the recording will also be in the previous stream, so that should come through a little bit more smoothly, hopefully. But that's a great question, and I've had a few people ask me. The biggest challenge really was just the daunting task of starting. When I started out, if you haven't heard my story in the first video, I had a friend of mine who had managed Forex accounts. It says it's looking good here, maybe. Okay, good. A friend of mine that did manage Forex accounts, he put in $30,000, and every month the guy would call me and he would say, "Hey, I'm up to 40, I'm up to 50, I'm up to 60, I'm up to 80,000. And it wasn't his managed account, but he just put money in. So eventually I said, well, hey, I'm a total idiot if I don't do this, right? I mean, it was going on for month and month and month. And I put my 25K in, and in the first month and a half, it was down to, I think it was $12,000 or $11,500. And I just kicked myself, and I thought, oh my gosh, if some idiot can manage this money and lose half my account in that little bit of time. Surely I can study it, right? And learn it a
You can
little
do better
bit.
than that.
Yeah. Well, obviously I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, it took me months, but that money was gone and then more money was gone. And like a lot of people. So my biggest challenge was just starting and trying to
Yeah.
understand. I mean, I would try to trade these news releases and the stuff would come out and it would go totally opposite because I didn't know anything at all.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been preaching
Buy
on
the
these
room,
talks.
sell the fact.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to tell people don't do this because you think you know it, but you really don't until you've lost a bunch of money or learned from somebody else. So
Yeah, I think that's very right. I mean, just getting started. I mean, that's there's certainly this day and age with the growth of the internet over the last decade or so. There's just so much stuff out there. There's so much education and so much people
right,
telling you this way and that way. You think, well, who do I believe? Who do I follow? And I think
right,
that was the biggest challenge for the newbies. Now, for me personally, the challenge because of my background, where I would stand with a couple of thousand people, or certainly in the pits, maybe 100 people chatting, chit chatting about the markets, and then all of a sudden you jump into action, and then you get back to your chit chat. What I found the biggest challenge is the solitary life of it.
yeah,
The fact that
yeah,
you do your thing, you take your kids to school, and all of a sudden now you're trading from the screen. You go in front of your desk, and you've got your screen and yourself.
right,
That's what I found the biggest challenge, and
right,
that's you're lost with your own mind, and you've end up doing things that maybe you shouldn't be doing. I was getting
right.
sidetracked into other stuff. That's what I found the biggest challenge. As a trader for 20 years, I found that really difficult to adjust to.
Right. I
And
agree.
I had to, I basically had to just retrain. I think that was really what it was. I mean, and readjust. And I tell you what, Jason, for as long as I've been doing it, I still think I learn more every day I do it.
Oh,
I
me
still
too.
think
Totally agree.
I'm still learning.
Totally agree. I mean, when I watched your videos the other day on the basic stuff, I was
Yeah.
picking up points and different tips myself. I mean, that's why we were talking about what type of plan to have in the premium room this next week. And we were talking just yesterday with some of the guys at Forex Signals, and we thought, should we do intro stuff? Should we do more advanced stuff? So we're going to sort of mix it up. But I think anybody can pick up tips on things. Like I'm going to go over how to use MetaTrader 4 next week and all the little nuances and some of the stuff I'm still learning when I'm looking it up. So I agree.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, Jason. I'm looking forward to that. MT4 is not my preferred platform. I'm getting used to it now, of course. So I'm looking. I mean, there's so much you can do with MT4, or you can do very little of MT4.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that as well. With that, because
Right.
someone that knows how to use MT4 can save a lot of time and mess no hand with your screens. And all
That's
that.
right.
So
That's right. And
good,
by no means I'm not a programmer. I mean, we made our own expert advisors and things before. I think I know it pretty well, but I'm not an expert in MT4 by any means. But there's so much you can do with it.
Do you know what, Jason? Someone asked me, so they didn't ask you, so maybe it's their lack of confidence in me. But what they asked me, this bloke asked me, or I don't know, this certain person asked me was, have I ever blown up a trading account? And if I did, why? Now I'll answer that question myself first of all. I haven't blown an account. I presume you mean blown. He means blown account. That basically means there's no money left, or you haven't got enough margin left to trade. I haven't blown an account, but I have had a substantial loss in the account. And when I say substantial loss, I'm talking about 5 or 6% on one trade, which is just unfathomable for me to get myself into a situation where that can happen. And I'll tell you why that happened. And I mentioned it actually in the week or last week. It was a trade that I had in an Australian pair, and I can't remember what it was. I would assume it was against the US dollar. And I went to bed with an open trade with a stop reasonably close, and some big news was out in Australia overnight, and I was it just traded right through me, and I wasn't aware this big news was coming out, so I wasn't aware of the fundamentals that were going around my position. Although I don't trade fundamentals, I just wasn't aware that this big news was coming out, and that's one of the ways I had my biggest loss. And I never, to this day, I learned from that. It cost me quite a few thousands of pounds. But from this day now, I'll never have a position not knowing what's around the corner.
Sure.
That's for me. What about you? Have you ever blown an account?
Well, my story is a little different than yours.
Right.
And
I put $100,000 in the pit once, but that's different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my strategy when I started out, it was one thing. I had a larger account. I was trying to do the smaller percent risk like a good trader should. But then when the U.S. rules changed and we had to open up brokerage accounts offshore for us U.S. clients, I wasn't sure on some of these brokers if I really trusted them or not. So I would put $200 or $300 in at a time. And instead of having, say, $10,000 or $20,000 in an account to trade to start out with, I would just put in 200 or 300, and I would put my whole trade on just that amount. That way, if it was gone, it was gone. And, with the brokers that we used, you can never go negative. Even if it goes down, they'll just zero you back out. But
Right.
that's what I did. So I blew out a whole bunch of little accounts for a few $100 at a time starting out. But that was the whole plan. I didn't want to have a big chunk sitting in some of the offshore little country that I don't know if it's a bucket shop or not. So I blew out a whole lot of accounts that way, but it was sort of planned because it was a couple percent of
You
my
mentioned
balance.
a very good point there, Jason, which takes me off. You mentioned a good point there. It takes me off into another train of thought that you blew a small accounts, $300-400 accounts. This is where a lot of these brokers make their money because
That's right.
they do their marketing, they do their
Right.
come in with, and they'll give you bonuses for doing this. I mean, they'll give you iPhones if you do a certain amount of business and so forth.
Right.
So they want people to blow $300-400 accounts.
That's right.
If they can have 1,000 people blow a $300 account every month, they got a great little business. So
They're
a lot of the
doing really
brokers are out for that. So
that's totally true. That's totally true.
bread and butter for a lot of these businesses. You
Right.
have to be aware of that.
Right.
That leads on to the question that someone asked me as well. I mean, do you think that he only had $1,000, which is a lot of money for a lot of people? It's not very much for other people. But do you think you can make this work with $1,000? I mean, what are you feeling about that?
Well, it depends on what you think make things work is. I mean, if you were asking me that right now and we were out at a pub having a beer together, I would say, look, if you want to try to be conservative and be a professional and make your 2, 3, 5, 8% in a month or whatever you're shooting for, right? You can do it with any amount, but you can't depend on that profit to pay your bills and live off of. So in other words, if you have a full-time job or part-time job, you keep that until you get to the point where the trading can replace some of that. That's my opinion. So whatever amount you start with is totally fine. And if you can do really well month after month after month, then it's time to put some more money in the account and scale it up a little bit, right? So
absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Right.
People, I got people that have in my up at the playground with their kids and all that. People know what I do because I'm about the only dad up to the playground these days because all the other dads have got real jobs. So people tend to talk to me about what I do, and I tell them that that this is what I do, and they say, well, can they start with £1,000 or £500? And I'll never rule that out, Jason. I always say, this is something that you can do.
Right.
But you're totally right. You're not going to give up your day job with $1,000.
Right.
But you are going to learn, possibly if you do it the right way, a career that could lead you into the next 10, 15 years of creating a second income for yourself, and hopefully at one day giving up.
That's
and
right.
I also said to one of them, in fact, I met him at the I met this guy at the trade show a couple of weeks ago, and he'd been made redundant, and he didn't have much money at all, but he was starting off with £500, which is about $600 US. And I said to him, look, I said, if you can come back to me in 2 years' time and show me that you've made a consistent return on that investment by following your set of rules that you've got written down, come back to me. I'll give you 10 grand to trade with.
Yeah.
There's no reasons why you can't go into a second business, even with a proven track record. But the problem, I think, when you're trading small account sizes, Jason, I don't know if you agree with this. I think the problem is when you start with a small account size is that you tend to, because it's not so exciting making $10 in a day. I mean, it might be a great percentage return, and that's what you're heading for. But $10 isn't going to change your life. It's not even going to buy a couple of beers in London,
right?
So you get impatient and you start breaking the rules because you want more excitement and adrenaline. So that's something that I think is that the only drawdown with a small account is that you tend to lose focus of what the big picture is. So I think that was
that's right. It's the psychology, right? It's the total psychology. If you can trade a demo account, I tell people try to get $10 or $100 in an account. So at least you're getting the real feel of the markets. You're getting the real spread. You're getting the gaps, the spreads changing. You're getting everything, and then just scale up. But you're right. How many people are going to sit and let that trade go and work on it throughout the day and check things and watch news to make $1 or $2 or $3? It's just psychologically hard. But if you can do it for $1, you can do it for $100,000. And the tough thing is 99% of people I've talked to can't wait that long. They don't want to try to get their 10% a month for 10 months or whatever. They want to try to double it, triple it, and get something big. And that's the biggest thing that makes people fail. If you look at Baby Pip's website where they do that free school there for people, they say number one, the biggest sort of grim reaper is leverage and impatience and wanting it too fast. So if you're in this room watching right now, that's the number one biggest hurdle. So if you're doing that, I totally feel what you're going through, but don't do it, right? Don't do it.
So if you are, right, I mean, obviously you're not a beginner now, and we're not. But if you were to talk to a beginner and he was to ask you, what time frame should he be trading? Do you think? I mean, I see a lot of people say that if you're really learning this, you should maybe go out of the time frame. Do you agree with that? I mean, I tend to think, trading from the get-go, maybe not messing around with the 5 minutes, because that becomes a bit,
Mm-hmm.
bit too much like gambling. Would you
Mm-hmm.
agree with that? Smaller time frames not so good for the beginner.
I would totally agree. I mean, I think you can learn a lot and you can lose a lot in the beginning. I mean, the best way that I learned was the mistakes, and
Yeah.
nothing makes you learn more than losing $1,000 here and there every so often.
Yeah.
But
And that's why if you're trading demo, you're not going to learn from it, because
I
it's
know.
just, oh, that one didn't work. Yeah.
I know, and since we know that most of it is psychology and emotion, you don't want to waste a lot of time in demo. I think demo is great to learn how to put trades on and learn how to get your chart set up and all that stuff. But to trade the shorter term time frames, I think is really hard, even for somebody like ourselves. I'm sure the big money managers, the big people in the markets, they trade longer. They look at monthly, weekly, daily, 4 hour, and that's really about it. Maybe they go down to a 1 hour for an entry. That's what you hear a lot. But when you're sitting and you want to scalp, it's a different story. But I would recommend doing longer term stuff. Like I talked about with the patterns, I get really into these head and shoulders and divergence things. But every time you go up in time frame, they're more important. More traders see them, more banks see them, more investors see them. So I love the longer term time frame stuff. You just got to be more patient. You have to have bigger stops. And if you have a little account, you can't really afford a 50 to 60 pip stop sometime if you want to have emotions in check.
Yeah.
Because then you got to risk 10 cents a pip or something, and people don't want to do that right away. So
do you get emotional when you have a losing trade, Jason?
not anymore. I mean, oh my gosh, do you remember last week I was talking with my buddy, and he could not let go of the emotion, and he would always take the profit when it was 5 pips, but he let the stop hit at 40. I literally went a year and a half talking to this guy almost, and he's a great guy. He might even be in here, I don't know, but he's a good friend of mine, and I literally wore out the carpet pacing, talking back and forth about trades. And I really feel like it's such a big thing, when you're trading these time frames and you're trying to avoid your stops and you're trying to let things run. I mean, you just got to be able to let it go and not have emotion. So he always called me a machine, because I was just like, I don't have any emotion at all if I lose or win. Now, this Euro Aussie trade we've been talking about the last few days, I'm excited that it's going good, and it's going well, and we're up 150 or whatever pips. Now it's come back a little bit, but it's still good. I feel good about that, because I feel like, okay, all the things I learned I was able to apply, but I don't sit there and, want to go out and have a beer if I have a winning trade, because it's not a big chunk of my account anymore.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
But, and also, I mean, the way I look at it is that, because I tend to trade. My mindset is based on probability. I'm not very well educated in terms of qualifications at school, but one of my qualifications at school was statistics and probability and what have you.
That's huge.
So I tend to be a probability trader. So, and that has helped me, not necessarily being in the trading pits so much, but my education about probability and so forth is that the one trade is really quite irrelevant. It's very difficult as human beings, I think, not to be emotional, when you have winning trades, and be fed up when you have losing trades. It's very difficult, that. I mean, and I still get, I can't, I'm not an unemotional person. I do get emotionally, not attached. I get emotionally involved in the trade when afterwards I get fed up or I get elated, but I know the emotion and I deal with it. I don't let my next trade be determined because of the emotion. I do get the emotions, but now I don't let them control my next trade or my position or my trade if it's open. That's why I think it's different. I appreciate that I do have them emotions, and unfortunately, I come from or maybe I should say fortunately, I come from an Irish background where we have a very high emotional character, and and I do, I can't get that out of my system. I just happen to be the Irish in me, I guess, and so. But you learn to control them. You learn to be aware of them. That's what I think.
I think that's key. And I brought up and I want to get a couple more questions in. Obviously, here this huge, but I brought up the example with me seeing my patients. I mean, it's totally the way it is. When you first start out, all I cared about as a doctor was, I want to make sure I turn this dial right. I want to make sure I don't forget to do this test. I want to make sure that nobody sues me. I want to make sure everybody's happy. But then after 16 years of doing this, all that stuff is just so automatic. You don't even think about any of it anymore. And it's all about the patient, making them happy and comfortable. And it's the same with trading. I can look at this chart and get so into everything, but I've seen it so many thousands of times over a decade that there's just, I love it and passionate. That's why we're here. But you got to have the
So
emotions in check.
I mean, I'm not a big user of Fibonacci, and I mean, I'm totally aware and a favour with how it all works. I mean, I see that you're doing you're doing a chat next week on Fibonacci. Does that play a big part in your trading? How do you use fibs these days?
Sure. I mean, I think the people who know me from the past know that I really like just the naked candlesticks. I mean, that's what I like to look at the most. And I use the other things as filters. But if I'm looking to get it, like with your trend continuation strategy you were talking about last week with the dollar yen, I definitely use my Fibonacci levels because I feel like they make me feel like I'm more confident. I know where these numbers are. And then it helps me get a projection. You know, if it pulls way back, I don't expect it to go as far. If it only pulls back a little, I expect it to go a little further. And those Fibonacci levels can be really key as far as extensions goes for my divergence trading. So it doesn't apply to everything. But when it does apply, it can be worth a lot. And it, you know, if anything, it gives you your little extra confidence because you got more things in alignment and it makes more sense. So I don't base trades just on it alone by far.
Yeah. Well,
by far.
I mean, I'm like you. I'm more of a price action candle man. But I do use moving averages, structural support and so forth to get into my trend continuation. But you know, the reason why I like them is that it gives me something to focus on.
That's right.
Otherwise, I just end up, in the past, when I first came into the screens in 2004 or so, properly, well, I didn't have actually anything to follow. I was just shooting, shooting from the hip, and basically that was not, that was not going to be, the way that it was going to work for me. So I better put some power in on this. So that's why I use technical indicators. Apart from fibs, what else do you use? You just use Sorry, I just put some power into my phone here.
Oh, that's okay. And the video disappeared for a
so
second.
Apart from fibs,
then it came back.
There,
now you're back. Yep, you're back. Apart from fibs, I mean, really what I like to use... everybody's talking about the market here because the markets are really moving now. See, that's the hard part. We're trying to talk about trading and the markets are moving, so you don't want to... No, I'm just kidding. But what I like to use is I just use a naked charts. And what did you call yourself? A naked candlestick... What'd you say you were? I was thinking that'd be a great T-shirt to have. Naked candlestick
I
trading man.
think I'll show my daughters that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Naked candlesticks. Do you know I had someone the other? Do you know? I don't know if you saw me. One of my videos last week. I did one on. I can't remember what it was, but I was talking about candlestick patterns. I mentioned Gartley, and I mentioned that this person didn't know a candlestick from a chocolate gatto.
Oh yeah.
Someone actually was asking me, can you tell me about the chocolate gatto pattern? They thought there was a pattern out there they hadn't heard about. They wanted to get in on it.
That's funny. That's funny.
Well, basically, I mean, because there's so many different names, but and people wanted to suck up so much information, and really sometimes it's a good idea just to keep it simple and stick to some of the basic stuff, rather than.
It is, and when you asked about what I use, and really just to give you the quick summary on just my own opinion, I use nothing on the chart, just the candlesticks. I do use MACD and stochastics for divergence trading. I use Fibonacci levels. I've experimented with pretty much everything that's on a chart, over the years. Parabolic. Yeah. I know you said you like the ADR. You like that sometimes. Is that right? Or the ATR?
Well, like ATR.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I've not used that much. I know what it is. The average range.
Average true range. Yeah. Basically, I mean, a lot of people use that. I mean, I tend to use it as well for profit targets purely because it gives me a defined target rather than me being subjective. And it's if I'm using a factor of ATR on stops, then I use a higher factor on take profit. So it's something that just keeps me gives me a plan that I have to follow, as opposed to me being subjective and giving too much thought into it. The more thought I put into it, the less successful I've been in the past. That's why I like to use that. And it's also a very good indicator of momentum. If the ATRs are increasing, then obviously there's market activity. As a trend continuation trader, you don't want necessarily an ATR that's contracting, because that means that there's very likely that the market's going to go into consolidation range. So that's why I would use that. I mean, there's loads of momentum indicators out there, MACD histogram for one, but the ATR is one of my favorite ones for that. I would say, yeah.
One of the other questions I saw here, and I wanted to ask it actually to you because I'm curious about what you do because I never asked you before. Do you do any kind of hedging on your trades? I mean, do you hedge if you're in a loser, or do you hedge on different, like if you're on a Euro USD winner, would you go on the dollar Swiss as a seller? I mean, do you do any of that kind of stuff in your own
No,
personal
now I
trade?
don't. No, I
Okay.
don't, and I've been looking at it over the last, the last couple of years. I think
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it purely because I have a system for me that's not necessarily broken. I know a
Okay.
lot of people do it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, someone posted a link last in the week in the room showing some algo for for hedging and so forth, and it got so complicated for me. I mean, I think this hedging, but I think the guy had about 20 trades on just to get his money back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm the type of trader really that if I'm wrong, I'm out,
Right.
and I just move it on to the next trade. Now,
Right. Right.
I've got myself established in my mindset now that I don't mind taking a loss
Right.
because I know over the course of the month I will take winners, and I know my winners are going to be bigger. So I don't get involved in hedging, although I know that it works for a lot of people.
Right.
I certainly, you know, this martingale approach. I don't get involved in any of that either. I find
Mm-hmm.
that personally for me, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't
Right.
want to be getting myself into the situation where when I switch my screens off in the
Right.
afternoon that I'm thinking about
Right.
what's happening. I mean,
Right.
especially with the with the with all the apps you have now, you can check it all the time. You're up in the playground checking the prices and all. I don't want to
I
get
know.
involved in that.
I know. I
So
know, and
I don't get into
I've been there.
hedging. I don't get into
Yeah.
martingale. What about you? Do you hedge?
I don't. I learned it and I did it for about maybe 6, 7, 8 months, a couple few
Yeah.
years ago. And I learned because I wanted to learn it. I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
do. I mean, I got all these years of college and I wanted to learn and I thought, hey, maybe there's something better. So I literally bought a course on just how to hedge and I learned how to do it. And I agree. I think if you're managing money and you got millions of dollars and you don't want to show some losses, you can hedge and they won't show up in your closed trades and it looks better, maybe that kind of thing. I mean, really though, right? I mean, it looks better like on my FX book if you don't close any losses, you show the drawdown. But what I'm on your side now. I mean, I still am guilty when I have a big trade on and I want to get to bed and it's getting to be 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I still will go into bed and I'll have my phone or iPad there and
Yeah.
I'll want to look at it because I don't want to get out yet, but I don't want to, so I
Yeah.
get sucked into that enough and I don't
Yeah.
I don't want that anymore.
Do you know?
Now,
Do you remember? Have you heard of a guy called Nick Leeson?
Nick Gleason?
Nick Leeson, yeah, he
No,
was
I
the guy
haven't.
that basically broke the
Mm-mm.
broke Bearings Bank,
Mm,
brought down
no.
Bearings Bank
Mm-mm.
in about 2000. He spent some time in prison. He was a futures trader on the floor of
Okay.
the
All right.
Singapore Exchange. It was called Cymex at the time.
Right.
But he basically brought down. It was before. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit older than you, but
Mm.
he was a floor trader, and he did basically that. I mean,
Mm.
he ended up going to prison for it, as I say. I mean, he was basically hedging, and he was and he was creating his losses that he was showing basically weren't showing because of his hedging.
Sure.
And then an earthquake happened. I think it was in Japan, and the markets went chaotic. And he literally took out $6 billion, I think,
Oh my gosh,
and
that's
then
crazy.
did a few
Wow.
years. But
Wow.
that's not to say hedging doesn't work. I know a lot of people
Right.
do it.
Right.
There's people in the room here that do it, and they are obviously much more knowledgeable about it than I am. So we're not knocking. I'm not knocking it. I just don't do it. So to
Right.
answer your
Right.
question,
Right. Right.
in
Right.
fact, I saw that question come on the room as well. I don't.
Right, right. And you know what's
I
interesting
think
in
I
the
did
US right
reply to
now,
that
they
person,
don't
but
allow hedging and in the US with the brokers. They don't allow hedging at all. And it's sort
oh
of
right, okay,
right, no hedging, first in,
yeah,
first out rules and all these different things. So, I think that might change when the rules in the US change and we think they might. I mean, I saw a little bit on CNN because I'm not when I'm in my exam room with patients, I don't talk about religion and politics because it gets us in trouble. But, with the Trump surprise win and it's really sort of interesting because I saw a little snippet of him on CNN. Somebody asked him about the Dodd-Frank Act and if he's going to repeal that stuff. And that would be
yeah,
huge for us here in the US, but I don't know if it's going to or not. But from a business standpoint, he seemed like the type of guy who might change all those rules back to the way they
yes,
were and make it easier for us. So we'll see. I don't know.
yeah.
I
I
don't
was
know.
hoping. I was chatting to someone in the room last night about that.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's going. I don't. I think I said to the guy, or maybe it was this morning. Now they seem to roll into one, but I don't think it's priority for him. But I think it's certainly
Right,
be interesting to see at the end of his term if he's done that yet.
right, right, right. I had one more question to ask you personally because
Yeah.
this one, I try to think, the way that I like working with this room and working with traders, because I'm a trader just like everybody else. Maybe we have different levels of experience, but I like to talk to you and to the people in the room like I'm talking to myself.
Oh
So
yeah.
if I were listening to us, going 2 levels deep here, I would say, well, why don't you just make an expert advisor with your trade rules, and why don't you just put it on automatic and let it go? And that's a common question. And I think somebody asked that. We have on our list here. What do you
Yeah.
have to say about that? Why wouldn't you just program your strategy and let it go?
I did that, and I remember I was in my other house, and I remember I was so excited because the coder gave it to me, and I got it on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Or the strategy that I've basically been using for, so I must have been trading for 4 or 5 years, and I got the guy to code me up my strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so excited. I got it on a Saturday, and I tested it on a Sunday. I put it on the screens on the Monday, and I lost money. Now that's not to say I'm not a believer of EAs.
Mm-hmm.
I just believe, for me, there is always got to be human intervention.
Right.
EAs don't tell you when you shouldn't be trading. EAs don't tell you you shouldn't be trading in front of
Right.
yelling about to come out. So the times that EAs don't work, I think negatively affects the times it does work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with any EA, yes, they're good, but they have to be closely monitored and adjusted. I know some guy in the room last week or a couple of weeks ago, he blew up his account by leaving his EA on over the election. Ryan, I think it was.
Right. I remember that.
Accidentally left his EA on.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. I mean, I think I've got signals that give me an indication of market environment, but I still like to be involved in it.
Right.
And I'll say one other thing about EAs.
Mm-hmm.
If there was any EA there that worked, i.e. without fail, I wouldn't be talking to you about it now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Okay. There'd be no national debt of Venezuela or any national debts, because
Right.
the government, central bank, would just stick it on an FX server somewhere.
Right.
So there's no EAs that work full time, and I think EAs have their massive importance in this business, but I do think intervention, human intervention, so more importantly. What about you? I mean, are you an EA
like
fan?
you? I mean, if any of you traders in the room here have been around long enough, you probably tried making your own. I mean, you can find programmers from different countries that'll do it for cheap and make it up. And I edited one. I have it in my file cabinet right here, actually. Oh my gosh, I have so many Forex files here. I won't even waste your time. But oh my goodness, yeah, we had. This is. I don't want to waste your time. This is unscripted here, but this was. Called my EA. We called it the Pip Sniper software, and I don't know how good you can see that, but this is all information about programming my own EA and all the different things that we did back then. And what's interesting about it is the rules do stick, and sometimes for a new trader, if you have no emotion at all and the rules have to be followed, it can be better than someone who's new, who's trying to get greedy and have emotion, but it doesn't look at correlating pairs. It doesn't look at the news releases. It doesn't look at all these things. And the EAs where they say, well, just turn them on here and turn them off there, and that's all you have to do, they don't work. Yeah. They don't work either. I mean, it looks like it should work, and then the back testing, of course, is totally...
I mean, if you look,
rubbish.
I was looking at the British pound earlier today.
Sure.
EA might be throwing out a signal there, but I would not be trading the British pound today. It's just it's in the it's just in that range, and it's just not breaking out at the moment. It doesn't know where it's going to go, but an EA would be firing you off possibly in a certain direction if it when the environment really just hasn't got the right move at the moment. It hasn't got a feeling of what's going on around the corner. Right. What about next week? Does the EA know what next Wednesday when OPEC announce what they're going to do with their plans? Does the EA know that? Does it take into account that? Does it know that's coming on? Would you be getting involved in an EA on that's going to trade oil or it's going to trade Canadian dollar, which is an oil currency because of it? No, I mean, so that's why I just don't use them so much these days.
The one good thing about EAs for me is it helped me when I was struggling through creating it and redoing it and retesting, is it helped me learn more about the markets and how things work.
Yeah.
It helped me learn that it's not a holy grail, because you see these websites with all the Lamborghinis and jets and the guys in the pools with all the women around them, and they all make $1 million a day off these EAs. It's hard to resist that, because you think, if I can just get a little tiny percentage of what they got, I'll have it. But it just does not work long term. So if you want to dabble in it, but just do it on a demo or on a penny account or something as a hobby. That's my opinion.
So do you have a favorite pair? Do you trade the exotics, or I mean, I only really stick to the major pairs these days.
Euro
Do you
Aussie
tr-
is my and I've been joking around in the chat room. Euro Aussie is sort of like my baby or my brother or whatever
yeah,
you want to call it. It's one of those things when you look at something over and over and over for years,
yeah,
you
yeah.
get
You
it, you
get to
get a
know it.
rhythm. And what's hard for me is obviously Euro USD, pound dollar, dollar yen, Australian dollar, dollar CAD, Euro yen. Those are big pairs, Euro pound. But
Yeah,
the hard thing for me is the USD, especially lately, has been so schizophrenic.
yeah,
Where sometimes I feel like when I want to trade with less stress, I try to get away from the USD pairs, just myself, because
yeah, yeah.
there's so many things that make the USD move. It can be a billion things, and sometimes I feel more comfortable, and I'm just away from the thing. How about yourself? I mean, I know you do trade dollar yen and pound dollar a bit. What do you
Well,
think?
I tend to trade. I've got this little. I mentioned it in the week. I've got this just basically like a strength indicator. They're all over the place. You can get them all over the
Sure.
all over the web. It just gives me an indication of what's strong and what's weak. If I'm a trend continuation player, I like to look at um, currencies that are basically strong or weak. Now, for example, at the moment, we all know that Japanese yen is a weak currency.
Right. Right.
I'm not. There's not anything at the moment that's going to get me
Right.
into buying anything. Is buying any yen. Buying anything that's
Right.
going to put me long yen. I just
Right.
won't be doing that.
Right.
So I look to trade anything that's strong against anything that's weak. So I don't have any favorites. I mean, if I'm trading on a shorter time frame, there's one up today, the pound Aussie, but my spread was just like 8 pips on the spread.
Right. Right.
Pound Aussie. So I'm just not going to get involved in that.
Right.
Because of the spread. So the more exotic you go, of course, the wider the spread is. So I will tend to stick to the majors.
Right. That's a really good point. I think your video cut out again here, by the way, just so you know. Let's see. There you are. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. But I agree. The spreads, and if you trade an ECN account and you have really tight spreads, the commissions are higher too on some of these exotic pairs. So
Yeah.
I agree. If you're trading daily time frames, the spread isn't that big a deal. If you're
Yeah.
trying to get 300 pips, it's not a big deal. But when you're trying to trade, like that pound trade you posted the other day, was it last week or the other day? That was just the perfect trade. And I didn't take it. I mean, and I know that when we post it, we don't want people to take it like a signal service, but that was a beautiful trade. I mean, you said here, and it went choo-choo perfect. It was great.
Well, it was, but the reason why I liked that trade was not because it was a winner. The reason why I liked it is because it fitted perfectly my criteria for my trading. And I mentioned in my chat yesterday, that having a checkbox, does it do this? Does it do this? Having mine's on my other laptop here, but you're checking off, and that ticked everything. So I will have certain conditions of evaluated a certain strength, and I've got to get over 70% before I take the trade. Now that was 100% trade. Everything works
right
on that trade. That's why I liked it, and the fact that it paid off was just a bonus. I mean, it could have gone the other way. I'm not. Not. It's just. It's not. It was just one.
Yep.
One trade. I don't look on the one trade. I look on the, as you know, the big the bigger picture, as it were. But that was a good trade, yeah. Now, of course, next week we're going to go into the premium move. We've got a good amount of following in there at the moment.
I just want to ask you. I don't want to interrupt you, but
No.
I know you have to sign up. How much time do you have left here, roughly, before you got to go?
I've got 7 minutes before I got to go and pick the kids up from
Okay,
school.
7 minutes. Okay, because I know there's a couple good questions in here in the chat room. If you want to take one or two of those quickies there. But I wanted to also make sure and remind you, I mean, this is our weekend summary of our 10 free days. Andrew and I are going to be in the premium room doing this type of thing a lot more, and it's free to sign up. You just click on premium members. So if you're going to be there next week, definitely join us and bring your questions over. We still may be coming in. I think from what the guys told us, Andrew, do you agree? We'll still be popping in once in a while in the free room here and posting some trade ideas and things like that. Is that right?
They're coming in for a chat, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be around, and not to say we're the Holy Grail, but for this actual setup, being the quote unquote mentors, we want to let you know that we're going to be there all the time, and we'll be popping in the free room as well.
So Juggler's just asked the question, Andrew, Jason, how do you find your trading edge?
Yeah.
And also, what is your weakest part in your trading?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
do you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, these questions, and from watching the videos, I can go off on topics like you can for an hour, and we only have 6-7 minutes. But to give you just the 10-second quick cram session, the trading edge, I think, is just the experience. I mean, when you look at the charts for thousands of hours and you look at the news for thousands of hours, you get to see how things work. And if you don't have the experience, take it from somebody who's been there,
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest trading edge. The biggest weakness for me is still wanting to be, trading $1 million or $2 million account. And when I'm making a couple percentage points, have it be tens of thousands of dollars instead of thousands of dollars and change your whole life. So I'm still growing my accounts, and I wish that I had a bigger account balance like we all do.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest weakness, is trying to rush things still. And I've been way better in the last few years, and that's why I'm still here. How about yourself?
I think certainly for me, for me, I think my weak point is the fact that I maybe spend too much time here. And I get too much wrapped into it.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
I just spend too much time. I'm just sitting in front of these screens the whole time, and I don't force trades. I don't get into trades that I shouldn't be getting into, but it does consume a lot of my life. And I think I could actually be as productive in maybe 5 hours as opposed to spending 10 hours here a day. So I think that's one of my weak points. It doesn't force me, but it just stops me doing some other stuff and stops me possibly learning new things. But for me, it's the time. But that's only me. People can do this for 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day if they control it. Because I don't have, I don't go out and do other work. This is my life. This is my job. This is what affords me to put the kids through school. That's all I ever do. And I'm also becoming quite boring when I go out with my friends, because all I talk about is the Forex market.
That's true. I don't even go there because they don't even know what the heck it is. I say PIP. They say, what is that? Some kind of disease that you got or something? They don't know. But here's the biggest thing for me too. And I don't want to waste all the time here because we only got a couple minutes. But the biggest thing for me is I'm used to, because I grew up on a farm. I grew up sort of lower middle class and working hard for our money. And I always feel like the more work you put in, the more effort, the better you're going to be. And sometimes with this market, it's totally wrong. I mean, there's times where I wish I didn't even turn the darn computers on all week because I had a trade that would be up 900 pips by now. So the more you do it, the worse you can do. So it's really a mind game,
I saw one here. My average Sniper FX. Well, I'd love to make 10% a month. That hasn't happened for a good few months. I 3 to 5% a month. I've got my 3 to 5% a month is top for me. I'm more around the 2-3% per month Sniper FX. That's normally my target for the month. And if you compound that up over the year, then obviously it pays. But obviously, the size of the account, is not good for some. It's the people need bigger percentages. They obviously have to take more risk. But for me, I can live on 3% a month. So and so for me, that's me. Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge. And on my side, and again, I'm trying to cram this down really fast. I have a whole bunch of different accounts with different brokers. So I have my bigger account that I try to do smaller percentage and do professional trading with, and then I have some of these tiny accounts that are $500 to $1,000, and sometimes I'll make 6 times, 600% in a few weeks on some of those. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're testing different things, so I think the percentage is really up to you. It says at Jason, how do we get in the room if we don't sign up for an account with one of Nick's brokers at Forex Signals here? I really don't know. I don't think there is a way. Do you know, Andrew? And again, we don't run the show.
Not at the moment. I think we'll, because we're starting off and what we're doing, we're promising one-on-one with these people that come in initially. We didn't want 50,000 people coming in or 500 people coming in. So we want to gradually get it in. So the bar at the moment, I can't remember what it is on the account side. It's quite small. I think it was I don't know if it's small or not. $5,000.
Right.
I don't know if that's small or large for people, but but at the moment that's where the bar is. They might lower it down if once we've got the initial wave of people out the way. Of course, in terms of one-on-one, because what we don't want to do is dilute the one-on-one relationship that we're trying to get here. We're trying to do this as not a signal service, as you say, it's a coaching, mentoring thing where we get to know individuals, we get to know individual trade plans. So at the moment it's there. And once we've got that out the way, in terms of that, we might offer some other way of getting in, whether it's reducing the brokerage account size or whether it's a monthly fee. I don't know about that, to be honest, but I think certainly it's a question that we'll see how the first few weeks pans out before we look at that, I think.
Right. And then I had a quick question here. FX Choice, if they offer a 1099 form, I don't think they do. I mean, every broker that I used that wasn't based in the U.S. doesn't give a 1099. So what I do is I print out my trading history, the whole entire thing, and I bring it into my CPA, my tax person, at the end of the year. And they want to know wins and losses. And in the Forex, since you treat it like a business, you can carry your losses forward here in the United States. So you can sort of deduct those off. Yeah, $5,000 I believe is the minimum for any of those
Okay, yeah.
accounts. So you got to get going, don't you? Pretty
I got to
quick.
get. I got to pick the kids up from school. I'm sorry about the delay on the initial
Yep.
video stream because I hadn't sorted out the sound system here. That's just typical me. All the gear, no idea.
Yep.
I do have to get going. But I say that almost wraps up our 2 weeks popping into the stream. Really enjoyed the questions that have come through. When I get back, maybe Jason, you can. I literally have to go. Maybe you can jot down our email addresses on the window here, Andrew at and Jason
Oh,
at.
sure, sure.
So anyone has other questions, they can email us
Sure.
as well regarding getting into the premium room. Any other questions that don't get spotted straight away on the live chat, we can maybe attend to them then.
That's you got it. You got it. And if I think if you I don't even know if you sign off if I can still keep going here. I don't know, but well, we'll just see how it goes, I guess, because you got to run. Why don't we close down the Skype? Because I don't want to make you. I mean, there's some things you can bend the rules, but when you got to pick up your kids at school, you can't bend the rules on that one. So
yeah, I can't bend the rules on that one. Unfortunately, the school we phoned him up. Unfortunately, I did miss it last week because of a stream. I did miss it last week. The phone rang, and I don't normally answer the phone when I'm on a stream.
Right.
And it was the school saying, "Mr. Lockwood, your daughters are here."
Right.
And they're only 8 and 6, and they thought I'd left them, so I have to go.
Oh my gosh. Okay. But the emails, Jason at forexsignals.com and Andrew at forexsignals.com.
Yep, drop them in there. Any comments about this? Please do drop us a line on that, guys, in the room, and let us know what you feel about this.
Yeah.
Whether you found this Q&A interesting. We might do this on a regular thing if you find it interesting.
Right.
We might be able to come in once a week just to catch up and have this type of chit chat to keep you all looking at our ugly faces, or my ugly face.
Right. No, mine more. But don't be afraid to instant message us. A lot of traders have been doing that. If you have a question here, and I'm sorry because we got different chats going. If you have a question and we didn't cover it, just do the message. You can private message us and we'll give you an answer right away. So I guess that's all for now. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week in the premium room. If not, we'll be back in the free room here and there. And I think that's about it. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so. I'll just say thanks everyone for all the great input this week. It's really been fun and it's been educational for me. And also this, as far as I'm concerned, is the start of a really good journey for the people that are they're wanting to take this level trading to the next level. And
right on.
I understand if some of you haven't got the $5,000 for the account at the moment. Okay, well we're going to look at that down the line. I'm sure if you have, I encourage you to come in and you just access us all day long for for free. So why would you not want to do that? I got to go. Have a good weekend, Jason. Right. I'll speak to you later.
All right. Thank you. Have
Take
a good
care.
one.
Cheers, guys.
Bye now.